I never thought my love for grilling in my backyard would turn into a full-blown war with the HOA. It started out as just a regular Saturday afternoon, the kind of day you look forward to all week. The sun was shining, the smell of barbecue filled the air, and I had my friends over. Everything felt perfect until the HOA decided they had a problem with it. Rest of Section 1 continues, rewritten with hooks, storytelling, emotion, and grade 8 English. You know how they say, when things feel too good, something always goes wrong? That was exactly what happened to me that day. One minute I was laughing with my friends, holding a plate full of ribs, and the next minute, my neighbor walked over with that all-too-familiar frown. The kind of frown that screams, "I'm about to ruin your fun." At first, I tried to brush it off. I thought maybe it was just another noise complaint, or maybe they were annoyed about cars parked on the street. But no, this time it was about the barbecue itself. My neighbor said the smoke was disturbing the community. Disturbing the community? It was just ribs and chicken, not a forest fire. But that's the thing about HOAs. Once they set their eyes on you, every little thing you do becomes a crime. I laughed it off politely, but deep down, I knew this was the start of something bigger. And oh, was I right. The next week, I got a letter. Not just any letter, a formal notice from the HOA. It basically said, "Stop grilling or else." I couldn't believe it. Imagine being told you can't barbecue in your own backyard. My backyard, the place I paid for, the place I take care of, the place where I build memories with my family and friends. Now, let me tell you something. I love grilling. It's not just about food. It's about connection, about celebrating life's small moments, about making a Saturday afternoon feel like a holiday. So when they tried to take that away from me, they weren't just coming after my ribs. They were coming after my freedom. I decided I wasn't going to bow down. I wasn't going to stop grilling just because a group of people with clipboards thought they had control over me. And that's when the real battle started. First, they started with petty threats. Little letters in my mailbox. Warnings about fines. Notes about community standards. Each one felt like they were testing me, pushing to see if I'd break. But I didn't. Every time they sent a warning, I fired up the grill even hotter. I invited more friends. I made it louder, bigger, happier. The thing is, when you stand up to bullies, they either back off or they come back with something nastier. My HOA chose the second option. One evening, just as I was marinating steaks, I saw flashing lights outside my house. For a split second, I thought maybe it was an ambulance, or maybe the police were checking something nearby. But no, the car stopped right in front of my house. And when the agent stepped out, my jaw dropped. It wasn't the local cops. It was the ATF. Yeah, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau. I remember standing there in shock, holding a bowl of sauce, thinking, what on earth is happening? Did someone seriously call the ATF on my barbecue? Turns out, yes, that's exactly what happened. My HOA, in their endless quest to control me, reported that I was illegally serving alcohol at my parties. They accused me of running some sort of underground bar out of my backyard. I couldn't even believe it. This wasn't just petty anymore. This was war. Now, I want you to imagine being in my shoes. You're a regular guy, grilling ribs, hanging out with friends. Suddenly, government agents show up at your door, asking questions, looking around, trying to figure out if you're breaking federal law. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might jump out of my chest. But here's the thing, they found nothing. Because I wasn't running a bar. I wasn't selling alcohol. My friend brought their own drinks, and we shared them like normal adults do. That's it. No crime. No underground operation. Just friends, food, and fun. The ATF agents were professional, but you could tell even they thought the whole thing was ridiculous. One of them even said, "We get all kind of calls, but this is a new one." They left without charging me, but the damage was done. My reputation was shaken. My neighbors started whispering. People I barely knew looked at me differently, like I was some sort of criminal mastermind. And that's exactly what the HOA wanted. They didn't just want to stop my BBQs. They wanted to break me. But here's where the story takes a turn. Because in trying to ruin me, The HOA ended up ruining themselves. See, in their complaint, they mentioned alcohol so many times. The ATF decided to look a little closer. Not at me, but at them. Because guess what? The HOA board was hosting their own private events. And at those events, they were serving alcohol without the proper permits. Can you imagine the irony? They called the feds on me, only for the feds to discover their little secret. And when the ATF dug deeper, they found out the HOA had been making money off those events. Selling drinks, charging people, pocketing the cash, all without a license. When the truth came out, it was like watching a house of cards collapse. The HOA board got hit with fines. They lost their liquor license. Their reputation? Shattered. The same neighbors who once whispered about me now whispered about them. And me? I kept grilling. Every weekend, without fail. Ribs, burgers, steaks, you name it. And this time, the HOA couldn't say a word. But let me tell you, the biggest victory wasn't just that I got to keep my grill going. The biggest victory was proving that sometimes, when you stand your ground, the bullies expose themselves. End of Section 1 CTA. So, here's my message for you. Don't let anyone scare you out of living your life. Whether it's an HOA, a boss, or just someone who doesn't like your happiness. Stand tall, because when you fight back with truth, you might just win bigger than you ever imagined. If you want to hear exactly how the HOA's downfall played out and how I turned this whole mess into the biggest neighborhood victory, stick around for part 2. You don't want to miss it. When the news spread that the HOA had lost their liquor license, you could almost feel the shift in the neighborhood. The same board that once walked around with their noses in the air suddenly looked like they were walking through mud. People avoided their gaze. Their whispers weren't about me anymore. They were about them. And honestly, I wish I could say I felt sorry for them. But I didn't. Not even a little bit. Because what they tried to do to me wasn't just unfair, it was cruel. They dragged my name through the dirt. They embarrassed me in front of my friends, my family, and my neighbors. And for what? Because I dared to grill some ribs in my own backyard. But here's the thing about life. When someone tries to bury you, sometimes they forget you're a seed. And when you're a seed, you come back stronger. After the ATF exposed their little side hustle, the HOA board started falling apart from the inside. Some members resigned. Others tried to blame each other. Meetings that were once stiff and full of arrogance turned into shouting matches. The people who used to enforce community standards couldn't even keep their own house in order. I started getting calls and texts from neighbors who never spoke to me before. They said things like, "Hey, I'm sorry for how they treated you." Or, "We had no idea they were doing that behind closed doors." For the first time, people saw me not as a guy who made too much smoke, but as the guy who stood up for himself. It was funny, really. The HOA thought they could destroy me by shining a spotlight on my backyard. But that spotlight ended up exposing their own dirty laundry instead. Now, let me pause for a second, because I want you to think about this. How many times in your life has someone tried to make you look bad, only for the truth to end up making them look worse? It happens more often than you think. That's why I always say, never let fear silence you. The truth has a way of fighting back. Anyway, back to the story. The HOA was desperate to regain control. They tried everything. More letters. More warnings. Even after losing their liquor license, they still tried to fine me for excessive gatherings. They claimed my BBQs were creating traffic issues, that my guests were disrupting the neighborhood peace. But by then, nobody was buying it. See, once trust is gone, it's gone. And the HOA had lost all trust. People started showing up at my BBQs, not just to eat, but to support. It turned into something bigger than food. It became a symbol of standing up to unfair rules, a symbol of freedom in our own homes, a symbol of saying enough is enough. One Saturday, I had more than 50 people in my backyard. Families, kids, grandparents, even neighbors who once complained about the smoke. Everyone was there, laughing, eating, and enjoying themselves. Someone brought a guitar, and soon the whole yard was filled with music and joy. I looked around and thought, this is what community should feel like. Not fear, not control, not endless rules and fines. Just people coming together, celebrating life. And you know what the funniest part was? The HOA board members sat in their homes, peeking through blinds, powerless. They couldn't do a thing. They had lost every bit of authority. But it didn't stop there. The fallout from their liquor license scandal grew bigger. Local news picked up the story. Imagine the headline: HOA calls ATF on neighbor, gets busted for illegal liquor sales. It spread like wildfire. People outside our neighborhood were laughing at the absurdity of it all. Strangers would drive by just a point at the HOA office and shake their heads. The board's reputation was destroyed beyond repair. Some members even moved out of the neighborhood entirely. And the ones who stayed? Let's just say they learned how to keep quiet. For me, though, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about something deeper. This whole battle taught me a lesson I'll never forget. When you stand up for yourself, you don't just fight for your own rights. You inspire others to fight for theirs. Neighbors started challenging other unfair HOA rules. People stopped living in fear of fines and started speaking up. The board meetings, once run like a dictatorship, turned into real discussions. The power shifted, and it all started with one backyard barbecue. Now, let me ask you something. What's your barbecue? What's that one thing in your life that someone's trying to take from you? Maybe it's your peace. Maybe it's your dream. Maybe it's your freedom to live the way you want. Whatever it is, don't give it up just because someone tries to intimidate you. Because here's the truth. Bullies win only if you let them. I could have stopped grilling. I could have played it safe. I could have said, fine, I'll just eat indoors. But if I had done that, the HOA would still be running wild, making up rules and ruining lives. By standing up, I not only saved my BBQs, I saved my community from their control. And trust me, I know it's not easy. It's scary to stand up. It's stressful. When the ATF pulled up to my house, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lose everything. But sometimes you have to go through the fire to prove you're stronger than the flames. Today, my backyard still smells like barbecue every weekend. But it's more than just food now. It's a reminder that freedom matters, that truth wins, that you should never let fear steal your joy. And every time I fire up the grill, I smile. Not just because of the taste, not just because of the laughter, but because I know the HOA tried to take away and failed. So let me leave you with this. If you're facing your own version of an HOA, your own bully, your own unfair battle, don't give in. Don't let them scare you into silence. Stand your ground, because you never know, the very thing they use to try to destroy, you might end up destroying them instead.